Good day viewers, my name is Audrey Polton. Welcome to lesson 5 for grade 10 and 11 mathematics. The topic for today is completing a square. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to complete a perfect square trinomial and solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. In algebra, you will work with only two types of statements, expressions and equations. An expression is a math sentence made up of terms, while an equation is a statement that two expressions are equal to each other. If you have an expression, you can simplify it or factorize, evaluate, or write it in another form. However, in an equation, the aim is to solve it, which means to find the value of the variable. You can also draw a graph of an equation. So in any algebra question, it is important to notice whether you have an expression or an equation. Remember that the word quadratic means there is an x squared term in the expression or equation. We can use the process of completing the square to solve an equation. But before that, let's quickly recap on how to complete a square. Any quadratic trinomial which has a 1x squared term can be changed into a perfect squared trinomial by adjusting the constant. Let's look at the quadratic trinomial x squared minus 6x plus 9 as shown on the screen. Divide the 6 by 2 and square the result. 6 divided by 2 is 3 and 3 squared is 9. By adding 9, you have created a perfect square trinomial which can be factorized as x minus 3 all squared. Here is an example. Complete the square and factorize. X squared minus 10x plus question mark is equal to open bracket x minus question mark close bracket squared. Divide 10 by 2 and square the answer, and that is the constant you need. 10 divided by 2 is 5 and 5 squared is 25. Factorizing gives x minus 5 all squared. The 5 is found in one of two ways, either half of 10 or the square root of 25. Okay, I'm sure that you are now ready to learn a useful way to solve quadratic equations which do not factorize. X squared is equal to 9 is an example of a simple quadratic equation. And to solve it is really easy because x squared and 9 are both perfect squares. We just need to find the square root of both sides. But be careful. Remember, there are always two roots to consider, a positive root and a negative root. There are two solutions. So x can be positive 3 or negative 3. An equation such as open bracket x plus 5 close bracket squared is equal to 16 is also easy to solve because both sides are perfect squares. Just find the square root of both sides. Remember that the right hand side can have a positive or negative square root. This leads to x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus 4. Now we solve the equation twice, once using the positive 4 and again using the negative 4. If x plus 4 is equal to positive 4, then by subtracting 5 on both sides, we find that x is equal to negative 1. However, we also know that x plus 5 could be equal to negative 4. In this case, solving it leads to x is equal to negative 9. As we expected, there are two solutions to the quadratic equation. Another example is solve open bracket x minus 6 close bracket squared is equal to 25. You need to find the square root of both sides, then make two linear equations, one with a positive square root and the other with a negative square root. X minus 6 is equal to plus 5 leads to the solution x is equal to 11. X minus 6 is equal to negative 5 leads to the solution x is equal to 1. Sometimes a quadratic equation does not have perfect squares on each side and does not factorize. This is where you have to complete the square first to be able to solve the equation. We can solve the equation x squared minus 6x minus 10 is equal to 0. First, check the relationship between 6 and 10. Half of 6 squared is not 10. So 10 is not the number we want or need. Move it to the right hand side by adding 10 to both sides. Now, complete the square on the left side, but because we have an equation, remember to add the same value to both sides. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. At this stage, we are on familiar ground. Factorize the left side as open bracket x minus 3 close bracket all squared, and simplify the right side by adding 10 and 9 to give 19. Now we have exactly what we had earlier in the lesson. Find the square root of both sides. Remember to show two possible roots on the right hand side. Make two simple linear equations, one with a positive square root of 19 and the other with a negative square root of 19. And solve each of them for x. The square root of 19 is an irrational number. We will need to use a calculator to find it. The square root of 19 is 4.358898 and more decimals. Once you have the square root of 19, add 3 to get x is equal to 7.3588989. Now find the negative square root of 19 and add 3 to get x is equal to negative 1.3588989. As we expected, there are two solutions. In questions such as these, the answer is given to either 3 significant figures or 2 decimal places. You will usually be told which to give. Let's summarize the steps we did. The coefficient of the x squared term called a must be 1. The constant must be the square of half of the value of b. If it is not, move that constant to the right hand side, remembering to change the sign. Replace it with another value which you find by completing the square. In doing this, you add on the correct value of c, but you have to add the same number to both sides. Next, factorize the left side as the square of a binomial and simplify the right hand side. Find the square root of both sides and remember to show both the positive and negative square root of the right side. Make two linear equations, one using the positive square root and the second using the negative square root, and then solve each equation for x. This gives the two solutions we expect for a quadratic equation. Let's work through another example step by step. We need to solve the equation x squared minus 10x plus 3 is equal to 0. The first term is 1x squared, so that is fine. 3 is definitely not the correct constant because 10 divided by 2 is 5 and 5 squared is 25, not 3. So, Move the 3 to the other side, changing it to -3. Now complete the square. The value we must add is 25. As we have just said, it comes from half of the middle term, which is 10 squared. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. Because we have an equation, add 25 to both sides. The left side is now a perfect square trinomial and can be factorized as open bracket x minus 5 close bracket squared. On the right side, -3 plus 25 simplifies to 22. Now, find the square root of both sides, remembering to show the positive and negative square roots of 22. At this point, write two small equations, one with a positive square root of 22 and the other with a negative square root of 22. In each equation, isolate the x by adding 5. Use a calculator to find the square root of 22. It is an irrational number and not one that we will know. Solve each equation for x by finding the two square roots and then adding 5. Round off your answers to the required level of accuracy. Sometimes 3 significant figures and sometimes 2 decimal places, depending on the question. We've come to the end of the lesson. Let's summarize what we have learned today. The word quadratic means there's an x squared term in the expression or equation. We can use the process of completing the square to solve an equation. To solve a quadratic equation by completing the square, you can follow the following steps. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Make sure a is equal to 1. C must be equal to open bracket b divided by 2 close bracket squared. If not, move C to the other side. Complete the square. Add the number to both sides. Factorize the left side as open bracket x plus p close bracket squared. Simplify the right hand side. Square root both sides. Make two equations, positive square root and negative square root. Solve each to find two solutions for x. Viewers, we have come to the end of the lesson. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.